Hello, everyone. You've got me for both things tonight. Well, starting next week, we read from the book of Exodus. And actually, if we'd had for the afternoon services on Shabbat, you actually do a Torah reading and you read a little bit of next week's portion to get you in the mood. You don't read the same thing you read that morning. So I thought it might be nice. I was looking and saying, I've got some stories that actually have to do with the Torah portion. A lot of my chaplaincy work, I read stories that maybe have Jewish families, but I don't really do things that get too religious. So this is actually a modern midrash, which means it's going to focus a little more on women in a positive way than some of the midrashes that the rabbis actually did. So this is it's about Miriam, and Miriam is babysitting a baby. We all know what baby it has to be, right? It was Moses. So no one was surprised to see Miriam heading to the river late one afternoon with a very big basket. They would probably figure she's on her way to wash clothes or maybe collect some eggs that, the chickens or the ducks had left around. That was the way with Miriam. She was always busy helping her mother with some chore or other. On that particular afternoon, the other Israelite slaves were too busy to notice that her basket seemed kind of extra heavy. The Egyptian slave masters were too bored to notice that she was kind of singing a little bit of a lullaby to the basket. Why should she when the Israelite slaves had no more babies? After Pharaoh decreed all the Hebrew baby boys were to be thrown into the river, the slaves themselves decided they wouldn't have any more children because they didn't want them to suffer that cruel fate. Or did they? The pile of blankets in her basket twitched a little bit. Miriam rearranged them, still singing softly. The slave masters been paying attention. They would have seen her stop for a drink of cool water. They would have seen the basket twitch a little more, and they would have heard the unmistakable wah of a baby fretting. And they would have seen her smile at the pile of baskets and kiss them, smile at the pile of blankets, kiss them and start singing again. Miriam knew that the slave masters probably wouldn't bother her plan or ruin it because they weren't paying any attention. But the baby might if the baby made too much noise. Now, he was generally a cheerful baby and loved looking at his sister's face. So as long as Miriam kept walking and singing happily, and she could continue. But if she stopped walking and singing, well, there would be terrible trouble if she were discovered hiding an Israelite baby. She needed to hide him. But if only she could find a kind Egyptian family who would be able to take care of him. At the river's edge, she set the basket on top of the water. She watched it until she was sure it was bobbling, that it wouldn't sink. And she decided to start swimming, pushing the basket in front of her. A few minutes down the river, she saw a fisherman's shack near the shore. Miriam hid her head behind the basket so they wouldn't be able to see her. She was thinking maybe this was the house of kind people who would take care of Moses. The baby himself seemed to read her mind, his quiet wah-ha-ha echoing across the water. That caught the attention of a woman mending a net on the riverbank, for she looked up and squinted at the basket. "Husband," she called out towards the shack, "someone left a baby with a basket in the river. Should we rescue it?" A figure raised his head from the doorway. "Don't be foolish," she snapped. "We don't need another mouth to feed." As the baby began to cry in earnest now, Miriam pushed the basket away from the shore and sang to it. "Baby, baby, don't worry. A fisherman you will not be. Don't cry, don't cry. We'll find somebody to love you." And as they always did, when Moses heard his sister's voice, his tears changed to gurgling. Now, at the next bend of the river, Miriam saw a much grander house surrounded by old trees. A woman in fine clothes was strolling by the river, a servant holding a parasol over her head to keep away the hot afternoon sun. Miriam's heart, already pounding, gave a leap. Could this be someone who would care for her brother? Again, Moses chimed in. Wah-ha, wah-ha. Madam, the servant said, shading her eyes, I think there's a baby in that basket. Should I go rescue it? The fine woman continued strolling. Certainly, she called over her shoulder. We could always use another servant. Miriam didn't waste a minute, but roughly shoved the basket in front of her as she swam away as fast as she could. The rocking must have surprised the baby because Moses quieted and she's saying, baby, baby, a servant boy you will not be. Don't cry, don't cry. We'll find someone to love you. Miriam's arms began to ache and her mind was whirling. What if she never found someone to take care of her brother? What then? The river widened and the steps of a great stone palace loomed in front of her. Enormous flowers floated on the water, and servants in linen dresses hurried back and forth on the riverbank with bottles of oils and lotions. One of them noticed her and shouted, the princess of Egypt is coming to bathe, little slave. Take your laundry basket and go away. Miriam kicked off again, out of breath, so she could no longer sing. Moses sent up a worried ha ha ha. Now a softer voice called from the edge of the water. What is in that basket? The servant answered, nothing, Your Majesty, nothing, just a basket of laundry. Something made Miriam stop swimming. She treaded water, holding the basket with one hand so it wouldn't drift away. Laundry, said a soft voice with a laugh. Laundry doesn't cry like a baby. Don't just stand there. Go rescue the poor thing. But the baby for once was quiet. He seemed to be listening. The servant stopped waiting and turned back to the bank. Maybe it is just laundry, Your Majesty. I don't hear a thing. Moses, Miriam thought, for once, cry. Let them know you're here. I think the princess is a one. But Moses made no noise. And then when it seemed like a long time had passed, Miriam bobbed her head under the surface and slurped a little water. She raised her head, carefully emptied the basket, and spit water out right and hit Moses in the chin. Wow, he said. Finally, thought Miriam, I'm fine. Well, I'm so happy to hear you cry. The princess started wading out into the water herself. Oh, little one, she murmured, gently raising Moses from the basket. Where is your mama? The baby stuck his pudgy hand out of the damp basket and grabbed one of the princess's long braids. With a sudden feeling of sadness, Miriam thought of where her mother was. She was sitting at home and crying, worried she'd never see her baby again. This gave Miriam an idea. She splashed up the water as she'd been swimming past. Oh, how cute, she panted. Do you need help with your baby, princess? Moses was now squirming in the unfamiliar princess's arms. I suppose I'll help, but you're too young, said the princess. Moses looked like he was actually trying to break away from the princess, but Miriam realized that he was just about to burst into tears. Before she knew it, she was singing, baby, baby, a prince of Egypt you will be. Don't cry, you found someone to love you. And just to see hope, Moses was quiet again. The princess was amazed. Perhaps I was wrong, little girl. You certainly know more than I do about babies. How do I get him to stop crying like that? Perhaps my mother can help you, Miriam said eagerly. She taught me everything I know about babies. Oh, but she's so busy. I don't know if she'd be able to help. Moses decided at that moment that he was really hungry after all. Ah, he burst out. Go, the princess shouted, waving her hands over. Go and get your mother and I'll make it worth her time. Miriam swam off, her heart almost bursting with joy. Her plan had worked. She was going to fetch her mother, Moses' mother, to take care of her son. The princess was pacing back and forth with the howling Moses over her shoulder when Miriam returned with his mother. The princess gave him the baby at once and she sat down to feed him, her eyes brimming with happy tears. Suddenly, everything was quiet again. The princess let out a deep sigh. I found this baby, the one thing that I've always wanted but could never have. Feed him for me and bring him here every day. He'll grow up to be a prince, so care for him as tenderly as if he were your own son. Miriam's mother said nothing for a long moment. She stood looking at the princess as if she might hug her. Finally, Miriam nudged her, and bowing low, her mother put the baby on her shoulder and turned to go. And as they walked home along the river, Miriam found herself singing again. This time, she didn't sing to keep Moses happy, for he had fallen asleep against her mother's shoulder. Now Miriam was sang because she was happy. Baby, an Israelite you'll always be. Don't cry, we will always love you. So that's a little bit of a variation. They say that Miriam watched from the water and went and got her mother, but this gives it a little bit more detail about giving her that she actually helped with that. And as I haven't had kids, but I've dealt plenty of times with people with screaming babies. And for someone who is unfamiliar with what to do with a screaming baby, having any kind of help is really helpful, because I've had friends who the first time I think they actually ever held a baby was when they had their first child, which let's just say they didn't really know what to do. In fact, I remember one of them saying to me, "How did you learn this?" I said, "Well, I think because my little brother Larry stayed young so long, I just, picked up things, how to do that." So anyway, that is our story for today. And I'm going to, let's see, Control D, and there we go. We've got the blessings in there. Over here. Oops. There we go. To light way more wicks than you do with the Shabbat candles. Die die da 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 die 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 da 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 die 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 da 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 die die da da die da 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 die. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei Peri Hagafen Borei Peri Hagafen. Die die da 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 die 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 da 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 die 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 da 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 die da da die da 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 die. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim borei minei v'samim. Die die da 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 die 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 da 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 die 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 da 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 die die da da die da 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 die. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei me'orei ha'esh borei me'orei ha'esh. Die die da 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 die 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 da 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 die 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 da 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 die die da da die da 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 die. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil ben kodesh l'chol ben or l'choshech ben yom hashvi'i l'sheshet tameh hamaseh. Baruch atah Adonai hamavdil ben kodesh l'chol. And we now say the final goodbye to the Sabbath, Shabbat. I like that. I'm not big on incense or scented candles, but I love the smell of the spices in here. It's one of the few scented things that do not clog up my nose. And we put candles out. All the others have a tendency to. And we sing about Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu the prophet. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu HaTishvi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu HaGiladi, Bimhera V'Yamenu, Ya'avo Aleinu, Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben David. And we had a few stories that I had told that featured Elijah the prophet. And I invite you to unmute so that we can conclude the singing part with Shavua Tov. Shavua Tov, 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 a good week, a week of peace. May gladness reign and joy increase. A good week, a week of peace. May gladness reign and joy increase. Shavua Tov. Next Friday night is going to be only on Zoom for those of who do it that way. We will be on Zoom again next week for Havdalah also for it feels funny with it's December 25th, but everybody still calls it, even Jewish, kind of like on Christmas Day, but it's only December 25th, so it's really not, but that's how people kind of, know what it is. So yeah, for those of you on Facebook, Shavua Tov, and we hope to see you next week. And
yep, let's leave Facebook.
People want to
We're all unmuted.